everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay Hae podcast. And today I'm joined by former guest Etienne Kubwabo, but also actors Craig Andrew Mooney, Alex Jackson, Paul Stirrat, and Junior. Hello, all.
Hello, it's good to see you again.
Hello, hello.
It's good to see all of you, absolutely. So
Hello.
we will be talking to each of you, but first of all, we're here to talk about the film, The Difference Between Us, which you're all involved in. So, Etienne, you tell us to begin with about The Difference Between Us. Fill us in.
So The Difference Between Us, it's a film about a young black man named Alex Watson, who sort of lives in the secluded highlands of Scotland. And he's adopted by these two white adoptive parents. And for the first time, he leaves the highlands to come to Glasgow and joins a brother and sister played by Paul and Alex Jackson, and they're all flatmates. And as the trio gets closer, their past sort of challenges the new relationship. And then Alex, who's played by Junior, has to, learn what it means to be a black man in the modern world. So it's kind of like a story that I relate to. Parts of my life is in that story. And, kind of highlighting Scotland as my new home as well is part of that story. So it's kind of like me bringing the two worlds of where I come from and where I live now in a story that means something to me.
I've only seen the trailer. I haven't seen the whole thing, but the trailer's dramatic enough. I can't wait to see the interactions between the central characters. They're really, you can sense that there's all sorts of dynamics going on there. And you said there, Etienne, that this is a very personal film. Can you talk a bit more about your background and how it feeds into the film?
I think these guys have probably had this story like 50 times. But growing up, I was adopted at a very young age. I think I was like 8 months old after my parents died during war in Congo. And my mom, who's my stepmom, that raised me, and my stepdad, they raised me. And then growing up, I think the older you get, when you start being a teenager, when they're not like your biological parent. I don't know if it's just for me, I just felt some sort of distance between them. I never felt as close to them as the other kids at home. And even when I grew up and moved to Scotland, I've always felt that distance. She works so hard to make sure that the whole family is here. And I always questioned why somebody that is not your blood can care so much about you and give you this love. And then growing up and dealing with these issues, with COVID coming and we're all in lockdown, I was like, I need to deal with this issue and come up with a story that can sort of set me free in a way by telling that story, but also highlight other characters or people that I've met in different walks of life. So that's how my personal story feeds in here, and other things of like racism that I experienced living in Scotland, moving to Scotland, but also other things of beauty and love, because, I met some coolest people in Scotland. So I just kind of wanted to have, a story of love, passion, and, a story that deals with real issues in the real world, but also has a bit of myself in there. And kind of like working with Craig, he came on board and saw the first draft, and he saw exactly where I was going, and together we created something special.
Because we should say, Craig, you're also producer and writer on the film. How did you get involved, and what was it like to become involved in something that was so personal?
That's a very good question. Yeah, so I initially was simply cast as Pete in the film, but I was cast very early on in the process, I believe. I think I was one of the first to be cast in the film. And I had a very early Zoom call with Etienne just to discuss the story and discuss my character in the film. And I remember just sitting on that call thinking, this guy, he's going places. And he was so enthusiastic about this piece of work that he'd written, and really wanted to do the best for it and make it the best way he could. And I think on the call I mentioned, I think I was also a writer as well as an actor, and he sent me an early draft of the script, as he said. And essentially, I read the script and said straight away that I loved the story. I could see how personal it was to him, and I could see that he'd put so much of himself into the story. But when I was reading it, I also on my own end started to get all these ideas coming to me, like, oh, if we change that there, put that there, dialogue maybe that goes like. So I immediately, when I read it, I knew that I could help, and I went back to Etienne and said, look, I love this story. Can I suggest this and this? And this is a testament to the kind of guy Etienne is, because usually in that situation, if an actor had come back to you as the director or writer and said, look, hey, I like the story, but can I suggest that we do that there and that there? They probably would have told you where to go. But and probably I would have been fired from the film completely. But it's a testament to the kind of guy that Etienne is, because he immediately was like, well, that's great. I love that idea. And do you have any more? And then it kind of all kind of snowballed from there, until eventually I'd been brought on as the script second writer, script editor. And eventually we're now at the point where, what, two and a bit years on, I'm now working for Mile Away Films as the development producer for the company and helping with their future projects. So it's all been a bit of a whirlwind, but very exciting.
And Etienne, how did you feel? I mean, we've mentioned a couple of times what a personal story this is about, then having to collaborate with others on this story. I've spoken to you before, and when you're doing Beats of War, your comic, you spoke warmly about collaborating and how much you enjoyed it. But this is probably a different level even from that, is it?
Yeah, it's a different level. I mean, there's something about, and I call it energy. Like when I meet a person for the first time and I speak to them, I swear to God, I can tell this person is going to be my friend, or he's got good vibes, or she's got good vibes. I can tell from that. And with creating stuff, I've always learned in early stages of me being a music video director and documentary maker that I've learned to take my pride out of a project, because a lot of people get obsessed with their project and be like, oh, my baby, this is what I want to do. And having someone else come from the outside who's not totally your friend to give you another perspective, you know, you're wanting to give something great to the audience. It's something I've always been open to, and not just because of the polite thing, but it's because obviously coming from a French-speaking country, I may think of one word, 1,000 words, and Craig could be like, we can summarize that in 2 sentences, you know? So he spoke English longer than me, and I speak French. So it's kind of like we play along easily. There's some things I want to say, but having someone else look up over my work, I believe that collaboration brings the best work out of there. And there's so many things that I share with Craig. I'm into like super grounded stories that are real, stories that human beings can connect with. And when I met him the first time and he said, I can suggest stuff just off the energy I got off him, I was like, okay, let's see what you got. And I mean, a week later, I was like, this is the guy, man. Like, I'm not even looking anywhere else, you know? He was really cool. So, you know, he had that sort of fear-filled vibe to him. It's like, you know, super serious. And then, you know, then when we met, we were more relaxed, became more friends, and we were working comfortably. But the way he was delivering and the ideas he got, I believe, took my film from where it was, like from 60% to, you know, 100%. So that's the collaboration that is really important. Sometimes people get obsessed with their work and fail to show other people, because a film, you can't do a film alone. It takes a whole, you know, clan or whatever tribe to make the best picture. And yeah, collaboration has always been important for me, and even collaborating with these actors, it's something I do value the most. So yeah, that's how it's always been.
So Craig mentioned he doesn't think many directors might take feedback from actors. I'm going to ask the rest of the actors here. I mean, how did you guys feel? Let's start with Junior, because you are basically, as far as I'm thinking about it, representing Etienne on screen. It's very. So how did you feel about taking on this role?
Yes, great question. First and foremost, in terms of taking on the role, this was something that was very much close to my heart, because the character in the film, Alex, I could relate to on a personal level. So there was a lot of resemblance in terms of what the character goes through, which I could bring. And I just thought to myself, actually, this is a fantastic opportunity. And in a sense, it's a lens and filter in which we can showcase different perspectives of different cultural backgrounds, or different experiences from people. Hence the film, The Difference Between Us. So I thought to myself, that's fantastic. You know, the writing with the collaborative aspect, and working with Etienne as a director was a great experience. As you know, Craig mentioned, we're able to collaborate. I could bring my own ideas. Whereas in other projects, you don't necessarily get that, opportunity, to, collaborate and work together and try and figure it out and, put your own spin on the character, perhaps, which I was able to do in some cases with this particular film. So, I mean, it was just, again, taking on the role. It was a lot of pressure because you're looking at a lead role. You're looking at definitively being able to bring this character to life and having that aspect of making it believable, something that audience can relate to, can believe in and support. So it's always nerve-wracking, but I feel like it was a good challenge as well to, for me to showcase my skills and abilities as an actor and creative artist. So great experience from the get-go with Etienne. Everybody, it was a collaborative effort and we couldn't have done without the team. So that would be my perspective of getting involved.
And were you able to compare experiences, and then that feeds into the role as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of the things Alex, the character, went through in life, and just representing the struggles, being an ethnic minority. So all those aspects I could relate to, because I'm, in a sense, I say this a lot, but I was talking about my life in a sense. So it felt almost so real to me to be able to play this character. I didn't feel like I was acting at all. It was a true reflection of some of the realities I've had to face in the past. So a lot of it was, to me, real. And it was, I suppose, easier for me to bring that to life as part of the character I was playing in the film.
And Alex, how did you get involved in it? What was your initial thoughts when you first got the script?
So I'd say initially similar to what everyone else is saying, in that just speaking with Etienne, you just feel the passion straight away. So I'm pretty sure I had the Zoom call. It was like around about the time that I'd maybe just got the script. So I met Etienne through, I think it was a Facebook casting call I saw go up. I sent in a self-tape and then we had our Zoom and got talking, and just, as everyone else is saying, he just has such a passion about him. And I think that really speaks with the project, because everyone is going to have their own take on the characters, they're going to have their own thoughts, and I think it really goes to show how much someone's passion and putting everything down on paper can then inspire other people and they want to bring something else to it, which just goes to show how good the story is and the characters in it, because ultimately the actors are going to bring something new to it, and then the audience are also going to have their own personal takes in it. And if you're doing your job well in the story that you're creating, you want the audience to find parts of themselves in it the same way the actors are finding parts of themselves in it as well. And I do think that all just stems back from Etienne's passion for the story itself. So I got great vibes from speaking with Etienne on the call. And then when we had our initial read through, it was the same, just everyone seemed very much on the same page. It was just a really nice feeling straight away, and it just made me really excited to actually get onto set.
And Paul, similarly to you, now I'm not going to give anything away, I hope you won't either, but looking at the trailer, there's some darkness going on in the character there. How did you feel, first of all, to get involved, and then when you started reading your character?
Oh, well, Michael's a very interesting character, and funnily enough, I missed the initial posting of the auditions, and it was thankfully due to our beloved sound man, Brian, who said, "Hey, by the way, I think you might be suited for this role." I was like, "Oh, goodness me, I don't know how I missed that." And I applied, and me and Etienne got to talking. I did an audition, and I got a really good vibe from Etienne straight away, and I think we both just sort of clicked. And when he sent through the script, I started reading the part of Michael. I was just like, "Oh my goodness, I'm in so much of this film. Oh my goodness. And he's cool 1 second, and then all of a sudden things start changing. Me and Junior, we start off as great friends, but things can go a bit awry. And the plot of the film with Michael, he's very troubled. There's bits of him I can see in myself, which was easy enough to play, but then there's other parts that were a bit alien to me, and I had to delve deep and think and create a bit of a backstory for this guy and why he was. And I think there was sort of an underlying fear for this character in quite a lot of the film, a fear of a few different things, and it creates sort of like a resentment. And there's a couple of times where we had a scene and we're like, okay, so budgets and everything, we've only got so much time left to shoot. So it's ideal we get this in one take, and it's quite a powerful scene. So, you know, go away, do your preparation, and we'll call you when we're ready. And there's a bit of a palpable tension in the air, and Etienne calls action, and we go in, and it's just this crazy emotional scene. There's things being thrown, there's stuff being broken, there's very powerful emotion on display. I won't go into too much more detail. I've still not actually seen the movie or this scene in particular myself, but you could actually feel the tension in the room like just evaporate when Etienne finally called cut. So it's definitely a very charged character that I was very lucky to play.
And yourself and Alex play brother and sister, and I guess that's probably not an easy thing to kind of create. Am I right? You've that kind of bonds that, if you were brother and sister, are almost natural or are natural.
You would probably think so, but actually I feel like Alex and I clicked really well from day one. I wouldn't say, and I think that's probably comes down to the casting process, and in how the two actors interact on and off screen. And I think that we both got along really well. We found each other funny and just had a good time. You know, I think Alex is a riot. You know, she's always coming up with those funny one-liners. But but really, no, I think the two of us just clicked on a level that made the performance a lot more believable, and relatable as well. And I feel free to interject, Alex, if you disagree at all. But it was very.
I had a very different experience, Paul.
I felt like it was very easy to play this role in, where I would say Michael is quite protective in ways, and it was very easy to make that come across on camera, I think.
How did you feel about it, Alex? Because I guess in any relationship, brother-sister relationship, there are different, people have different ideas of how it unfolds.
Yeah, and I think especially when you're thinking about playing a pair of siblings that are adults and they already have all this experience behind them. And I would say the start of Laura's journey, she is maybe being slightly led astray by her brother, which is an interesting one to kind of consider as well, because I think she maybe acts in ways that aren't typically what she is actually like, but she's definitely influenced. I would agree with Paul that we did connect quite quickly on set. I think one of the first scenes that we filmed, or maybe the very first scene we filmed together, was late at night. I think we'd already been filming something else during the day, and a long day, you're always a bit delirious by that point anyway. So we're just sat in the car, and I think that Paul hadn't been filming earlier on. So we're all quite tired, and then Paul shows up just full of energy, and we're just sat in this car for hours, and he's just telling me all these wild stories. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting to know Paul very quickly. So I think as well, like the sound guys were hearing everything that was being said in the car from outside, which we would be forgetting about as well. But yeah, Paul's a great guy, very chatty, very charismatic, easy to form a bond with quickly. And yeah, it was great being your sister.
It's really interesting seeing everyone's faces when certain stories are getting told, because other people are laughing away. I'm thinking I'm only getting half of this, but that's fine. Etienne, I wanted to ask you, what's it like casting a film, particularly a film that is in no small part your life?
I think with casting film, I think this was first time. I used to cast like models and actors just for music videos. It was different because obviously people you're shooting B-roll. It's different as these actors were gonna perform. I think what I did for the first time is just follow my instinct. Like I had some really weird Zoom calls with some people who could not even talk. And they were saying, oh, they've acted for 10 years, how did this experience? But you couldn't even have a conversation with them, right? So I think with these guys, I mean, with Junior, it was quite tough to find his character. So I had to go through somebody. But meeting Craig, Paul, and Alex, there's just something about them and the way they spoke and the ideas, and you get that thing in your gut, right? I mean, they say they could act like everybody else, or say, "Oh, I can act," you know, give me a role. But there's just something really unique that I just felt in my gut about, you know, Pete, you know, Craig. You know, I could see his look. You know, I can already tell people who can sort of bring this character to life just by looking at their face. And then when they started talking, I just had to make a decision and follow my gut. Like choosing Alex's character, who's playing Laura, I had to look through 4 people. And, you know, Alex Jackson stuff she said, you know, she's just killing it. You know, Paul and, you know, Craig, come on, you know, and Junior, I watched some of the stuff he had done. So it was just, you get that gut feeling when you feel like somebody is gonna, you know, and I had to be as honest with myself as possible. I was like, if I feel like my heart is telling me, or the universe is telling me that this is the guy or this is the person I'm choosing, I'll go with that. And then I just kind of, no one told me, Etienne, I know that guy, he's a bad guy. No, I just followed my instinct, and it was quite fun to do. Quite sad to say no to a few people through email, and some people were not happy, but you know, it is what it is. You try and choose the best people you can work with, and you know, hopefully build. And some people who did not get the roles had asked, okay, Tim, could you give me something small, like you know, to just show up in the movie? And they ended up getting small roles in the film. But these guys was a really fun process, just looking what they've been doing. Because I tried acting before, I know how hard it is. If you put a camera in front of me, I'll probably start sweating and I'll freeze. So it takes a lot of work to be an actor, and I do appreciate the amount of work they did on the film. So yeah.
So you were never tempted to be director, actor?
No. I've kind of like, I just like to, even this film, I really wanted to hold the camera and just look through the viewfinder of the camera and look at these guys perform. But, you know, I had a good cinematographer, and, you know, I trusted the guy because I was wearing so many hats. So I had to sort of, you know, give up some tasks so that I can focus and make sure the whole thing runs smoothly. But I prefer being behind the camera and just watch people perform. You know, see Pete become the evil guy, see Paul, see Alex, you know, you see Laura's character. It was amazing. These guys made me laugh, cry, and scared at the same time. But we pushed through, you know. But I've never thought about doing actor, director. I think I'll have the anxiety just switching between, you know, okay, I'm gonna learn my lines, and I have to go back to the camera and see how the directors who do it, I just kudos to them. But I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's the kind of, you know, direction I want to take.
And were all the auditions done over Zoom? Is that right? Or
yeah, unfortunately, because of COVID, so everybody was like, I was not going to invite anybody to come to the studio to come. So we kind of thought that Zoom would be the best thing. And then when we even initially started filming, every day my anxiety level was like 250. You know, what if we get shut down? Someone gets sick, and I was so lucky. We're all lucky that we're testing ourselves, and then everybody just showed up. Everything started from the start to the finish. No one got sick. Nothing was shut down. So just luck, pure luck. I believe in the universe and God. So I'm sure something was like, this film's gotta be done, and no distraction or nothing is gonna interrupt it. So yeah, it's great process.
Well, you must be doing something right for that all to go so well. But I'm interested in how the people who have auditioned previously, how it was different to do it over Zoom. You know, for instance, Alex, let's start with yourself. Was this a very different process? You know, because Etienne mentioned how he kind of had to use his gut instinct. Now, I think that's probably even more difficult to do in the way that we're talking now than if people are in the room, I'm guessing. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say normally it is easier if you're in the room with the people, you get more of a vibe, because also, like as an actor, you also want to suss out if it's a project that you want to be involved in, if you get good vibes from the team behind it, which can be difficult through a Zoom call sometimes. It happens quite a lot now since COVID. I feel like a lot of things are done via self-tape and Zoom call. I think one of the first things that stood out for me was the scenes that we get sent to do an initial self-tape. I remember thinking, these are all really good scenes. Like, I trust this guy is film taste, which is always good. But again, it just goes back to then when I actually spoke to Etienne. I think, to be honest, if I hadn't read the script, I would have still been on board, just because I got such a good vibe from him. Like, even just now, just with Etienne, when you're talking, it just gets me so excited. It's just the real passion comes through. So I just had like a gut instinct as well. I would say that it was going to be a really good and fun project. I remember closing down my laptop after the Zoom call and being like, this is exciting. Like, I wonder what will happen with this. So I would say this particular one, it felt just as easy as being in the room, if not easier.
Paul, yourself, was this a different experience in terms of auditioning?
I'm a bit more used to self-tapes and Zoom calls. I got very used to that during 2020 in particular, and so I was quite happy to do it, and I think it's quite an economical way of getting to know someone for a project and whatnot. I think actually there's maybe some benefit to it, is because you're performing through a camera, maybe not as maybe it's a webcam as opposed to a fancy red or black magic camera, but it's still you're portraying the character through the camera, the lens to the person, and they're getting to see more of what it is you have to offer to this character. And I just find it quite a useful way, to be honest, of performing. It's a great way if you've got auditions coming up, you do a self-tape and send it off. You can check and double check which way, which one you think is best and suitable to send off. So yeah, I think I actually didn't mind the process too much. And like I said, anytime I got a chance to actually speak with Etienne, it was I always came back feeling really positive. It was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to work with this out. And I think that speaks to Etienne himself, actually, is because even though we are through a Zoom call, I just picked up on the vibes straight away.
And Junior, how did you find the process of being involved in the film when it was distanced like this, kind of forcibly distanced?
Again, similar to Paul, I think at this point I had been used to self-tapes. It's during COVID time, so the majority of the industry, if not the whole industry, actually shifted over in this new transition where everything was being recorded remotely and we weren't meeting in face-to-face situations anymore. So I think for me, I'd been used to that, but what set this one apart was, again, going back to that connection, call it vibes, call it intuition. There was something about this project and Etienne's passion that shined through, and also just the energy that was put into this. So when we did get a chance to finally sit down and speak over that Zoom call, we delved into ideas. I even said to him, look, I can relate to this character. We talked about the depths and sort of the backstory behind putting this together, the ideas behind it, how it was going to be moving forward, the sort of scenes we'll shoot and what we'll be trying to portray, and speaking about the character development. So it was really cool just to sit down and have, we could have sat down forever and had these discussions. So that's what set it apart for me, having that opportunity to just talk about the film, and even just talk on a personal level in a bit more of a relaxed environment rather than an audition room. The camera's on, it's lights, camera, action straight away. That sort of helped, I think, build a connection, because then that fed through to on the first day we were shooting. Luckily, Alex and I had worked together, so I knew Alex, but the other actors probably had some mutual friends, and there were some familiarities there. However, that dynamic and those vibes fed through to being on set, and the group dynamic was fantastic. I mean, you saw us laughing at some of the the stories that were that happened through the filming, but we actually got closer as a unit, and that actually helped when it came to those difficult days. Maybe it's long hours of shooting. So the group dynamic was absolutely fantastic. I've never felt anything like that, working on previous projects before. And I think that was part of the reason we all just put our all into this. You could feel that passion from everybody. You could feel that group effort, the collaborativeness as a unit was absolutely fantastic. And for me, it all began from that Zoom call initially.
And Etienne, for you, how did it feel when everyone met up in real life? Was that the first day of shooting? Was that when, you know, that happened?
I think the first day of shooting, I was like, oh God, it's happening. It's happening. My heart was pounding. Went through the prison cells. I was like looking at prison cells, everybody getting together, blind with his take, sound, I was like, Louis, his cameras, we had a clapperboard guy, seeing everybody together. My heart was, it starts racing and there's nothing you could do about it. And I kept saying myself, it's no going back now. When you say you get yourself in trouble, right? And then you're like, oh, I'm kind of like now in the middle of the ocean now. There's no going back to the coast, And I was excited and I was, anxious at the same time, but everybody brought some good vibes. Day one, it's a bit different because you don't know people, so you can't really make jokes and, do anything. You're like, let's get these shots. And then by day 10, we were like, oh, laughing and sharing food, and that we're more relaxed. So seeing everything come together on day one, I started getting excited because I was already seeing the future and where I'm headed and the kind of stuff I'm going to be delivering. And I keep speaking to Craig and I'm like, we're going to just be raising the bar from here, have more resources, shut down the streets, put Scotland on the map. There's just one thing about like being given the opportunity and creating the opportunity yourself. And sometimes people are always chasing people in the industry. Oh, do me this, do me that. When you start creating amongst the people, the universe or people around will respond to what they've seen. So I believe in this teamwork, the people I'm working with, because tomorrow something will arise. And I'll call Junior, I'll call Paul, Alex, Craig, and then we all go up together. And from there, we'll have other people coming in, but there's that trust and story that we've created from the beginning that will always, be part of our lives. And it's something I'm really excited about and I treasure so much. So yeah, day one was scary, but I'll never forget about day one because day one made me really comfortable to be able to know that now let's just make the world know who we are in Scotland, that we've got an industry that is thriving and we're coming for all the trophies.
And Craig, I'm really interested when filming begun, when things were underway, as Etienne just explained, the relationship between producer and director. Were there changes on the way? Scripts as well? Did things change as you went, or was it kind of set in stone when you began and then that played out? How did it work?
Yeah, it was interesting because this was actually my first foray behind the camera because I obviously came into this industry wanting to be an actor, but it was in the back of my mind that because when I started out when I was on film sets, I would sit in the downtime and I would watch everybody and I'd watch everybody's role and take notes on everybody's role and work out, well, is there something else in this industry that I would quite enjoy doing? And it kind of came to me that I really enjoyed being a producer and being a writer and wanting to kind of show off that kind of skill set as best I could. So this was my first time on a project of this size doing this. So on day one, I kept it very quiet, but I was quite scared as well. But I did my best to kind of put on that front. Because obviously, if you're the producer on a film set, you've got to be the guy who's in charge essentially and keeping everyone on task, on time, and all these things. So it was quite an interesting dynamic that kind of had to happen on set because obviously Etienne's in charge on set, he's the director, but obviously you've got to kind of walk that line between being, someone who he's brought on to this project, but also you've got to be the one that has to make sure that everyone gets home at, the time that's set. So it was a challenge for me to kind of work out how to kind of navigate that professionally between us both and between everyone else in the crew, which I really enjoyed. And I think I kind of grew into the role as things kind of went on. But yeah, it was a tough old journey, but we got there, and it was something I really, really enjoyed for sure.
And Etienne, how was the relationship from your point of view when things were actually practical instead of just on the page?
It's different. I mean, you write something and sometimes when you get on set, the way the location looks, things have to
Mhm.
change. The other person cannot enter from there because they'll fall off the window, you know.
Yeah.
So you have to be adaptable. Like some scenes I had to storyboard, but when I storyboarded and went there, things were not possible. So I'm that kind of person who is open to adapting and seeing what someone else is thinking about, because of a lot of pressure, sometimes you can just be in your head, you're like, okay, I want to shoot this is what I storyboarded. Just kind of like being on set and actually reading a scene and looking at the location and blocking it, thinking of how you're going to shoot it. It was super exciting. And, you know, having the best people to work with, like Lois, who is a cinematographer, I kind of gave ideas to him, and then he was like, oh, how about we try this? And I'm like, oh, that's even a good idea. I never thought that we could do that. So it was so surreal for me. It was just exciting, and there's so many things I learned from like Louis as well as a camera person, because he's a pro at what he does. But he's so humble. He keeps saying that he's he's just starting up, but he's really good, you know. But he just keeps saying, Etienne, don't worry about it. Don't much praise. But he's good, like the way he frames his shots. So seeing things move from paper and on film, and some things I would agree with. Craig, I'm sure would agree with me. Some things we wrote is not how we filmed them, because
absolutely.
we had to adapt to what we had, you know. And I remember one time we're shooting this scene, and Craig was like, Etienne, the weather is no good. It's not going to be good for sound. And I remember I was like, God, I don't have time. I don't know if I'll get these guys back. But the thing is, I didn't know that even throughout framing, these guys trusted me enough to say, okay, they can come back another day. And sometimes when you keep actors for too long, you're not sure how they feel. So I was so frustrated on if I'm going to lose these guys, if they're going to show up, than looking at the big picture. And then when we actually postponed the shoot and we went to shoot the last scene, I was so glad that Craig put me on the side and he insisted. This is the type of team you need, because everybody's always thinking about what's best for it, and he was thinking like that, you know. So this is the best people to sort of collaborate with. So seeing things play out the way you wanted them to play out, or change from the script based on the location, it's just an amazing process. You know, we are all there to find this together, and I'm glad that I have these guys that I worked with who did help me to achieve this.
And the actors as well informed that as well, because there was occasions on set for sure where I, in the middle of a scene, was like, that line's not working. That line's not working at all. Or oh, they said it that way instead, and I quite like that. So there was things that happened organically from the actors as well, where certain scenes, when they started doing them, I was thinking, right, okay, that looked good on the page, but actually when it's coming out of their mouth, it's not quite what it should be, or what I intended it to be, or what Etienne intended it to be. So we had to, on the day, sometimes adapt, let the actors improvise a little bit, and think, we'll try and work through together what would be a more natural, more organic way of saying that, you know, a certain line, for example. So these guys were great at that as well. They had great ideas and were able to kind of collaborate with us at that time and say, well, actually, if I would say this way, or and if does that sound better to you, and all these things. So it was fantastic to kind of. That's probably the most exciting time on the set, is when things actually, believe it or not, I can't believe I'm the one saying this, don't go to plan. When things actually, you know, you have to use your creative muscles and really try and work through a problem together, and all of us together doing that. That's probably my fondest memories from set, would be when we were doing stuff like that, for sure.
So kind of happy accidents almost. I've spoken to other, you know, whether it's been musicians or other actors or whatever, sometimes these happy accidents kind of lift everything else.
Yeah, I think filmmaking is problem solving. You know, if you're able to solve major problems there and then, you know, that's what it's all about. And then having the right people who are ready to respond and, you know, follow and trust what you're doing. Because sometimes I said cut, and then I could see some people's faces were like, nah, we could do another. And I'm like, but we don't have time. That would just do, man. That would just do. You know, I would love to shoot one scene per day. I know we're gonna get there, but yeah, just adapting and having the right people. It's amazing.
And you've
I
said
think that's something also, just to add to that, I think that's something as an actor you have to be prepared for. I think what's different from screen acting as opposed to perhaps theatre is, you know, everything is scheduled. You've rehearsed this 10,000 times. It's going to go like this 10,000 times on the day. That's exactly the way it goes for the most part. anyway. As an actor in film and TV, you have to be able to be in a position where you're ready for anything. You know, scripts can change at a dime. I know Craig and Etienne were just mentioning that, and you need to be ready for that. So that's where improv becomes extremely important, to not get set in your ways, and you know, you have it in your head, it's going to go exactly this way, I'm going to say this exactly. So that's the type of approach that you have to have as an actor. So the way I do it, I just tend to react naturally based on what I see, and the way I say things is based on the particular scene or scenario in the moment rather than on paper. So it's an interesting thing when we talk about improv and being able to adapt, because it's something that comes with a degree of difficulty, but you have to be, you know, you have to have those creative muscles to be able to adjust and adapt to the situation at hand.
With that in mind, Junior, can you say, I think I would do this a different way, or is that something that is possible?
Absolutely. I think, you know, there's certainly room for those conversations, and there were those conversations on this film, to whereas, you know, if I had an idea, I'd perhaps pull Craig or Etienne to the side. I think, what if I tried it this way? What if I tried it that way? And there was room, you know, to try those things. It wasn't always, you know, my way or the highway or anything like that, you know, from a director's point of view. So, you know, the guys were willing to have, you know, those different aspects and different varieties of the same scene, just so that you can have in the cutting room the option to pick and choose what works best. So, and I always find that useful. Whereas if it's a one-way system, it's very difficult to navigate that because it might not necessarily work. So I think having that, having that ability to, you know, allowing us as actors to be able to contribute, collaborate, and collaborate on that goes a long way.
That's interesting. And Paul, and I'll ask Alex in a moment, how did you find that process, the kind of bringing something of yourself to it, perhaps?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge sometimes with a role like Michael. I think there was times where I could just picture, yeah, no, I can sort of relate to this, sort of more downtime kind of moments where we're all chilling together on set. And yeah, I think there was moments where bringing myself to Michael was the easiest thing in the world. And then there was times where, oh, okay, I need to figure out where it is I need to go here. And actually there was times where I had to create a completely different scenario in my head from what was actually happening during the scene, as a sort of like a negative emotion, as like a fuel almost to burn while performing during the scene. And it was just this moment having Michael in various scenarios. He's quite the character. Various scenarios and various different things, trying to portray this character and all these shenanigans that he gets up to and the situations. He's a challenge because there was so much to him that I could relate to, but then there was other times where it was so alien I had to just delve into a completely different other side and create this whole other backstory and character that I thought I did my utmost to try and portray.
And Alex, similarly, when you start to inhabit your character, do you think, well, she wouldn't do that or she wouldn't do this? Is that the kind of feedback that you think about?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it you kind of do as much preparation as you can when you're looking at the pages. For Laura, I think she's quite an empathetic character. Like, she's got a lot of empathy for Michael and Alex, which I think when you care about your own character and you care about the other characters in the story, that is something that can quite naturally come out as well. So in that sense, it did lend to it. In terms of the sort of improvising, I think you're lucky when you work with talented actors that they can give you something that you can respond to in the moment, and you're like, oh, they said it like that just makes so much sense. And then you just feel the moment in itself, especially for the more kind of emotional and high intensity scenes where you've maybe already filmed it twice and then you need to get a close up, and it might necessarily be not your close up first, and then you still need to give the same level of performance. It was really nice. I feel throughout everyone did come together to make sure that you were giving your all to the other person whilst you were filming, because sometimes you find that if someone's already done their close up, they kind of tune out and they'll just speak their lines. But that's hard as the performer that's still got to do their best performance to meet that same kind of level. So just again, coming back to the collaborative aspect, I think it just all came together and we all had the care for our own characters and each other's, which really just helped it all.
And I mean, it sounds like everyone was invested in the final, you know, what's going to be the final thing, rather than maybe just concentrating on your own roles. It was a case of all coming together to, you know, make this film that Etienne, you know, you'd envisaged in the first place. Now that it has been made, how are you feeling about it? If that's a fair question.
Is that for me? Yeah. I'm excited. I'm happy because what these guys filmed, obviously on location, is different from how it sounds right now with the music and the mix and the color grading. So it's come to life. I'm very excited for people to see it, and I'm happy that this story has been told and is ready to reach the world. I've seen the movie like maybe 50 times. So I'll probably not be enjoying every bit of it. Like everybody needs to stay away from it for like a month and then go back and enjoy it again. But yeah, I'm super excited for everybody to see it. The surprises, the way we caught it. Me and Craig, Louis and Nick had to do re-edits in the studio, and you know it was intense. You know, we had to let go some of the scenes which did help the film, and I think what we have in is way more powerful and, you know, amazing. I mean, this is a kid from Congo, you know, I'm you know, millions miles away from home, and I'm here making films. It's exciting. This is history in the making. So asking me about how I feel like I'm on the top of the world right now, and I'm just getting started.
And I'm sure that's right. And we should where will people be able to see it? Do you know yet?
So it's going to be showing from the 21st of July to the 5th of August at CCA in Glasgow. And you'll be able to see it as well in Edinburgh from the 9th of September. It's also going to show in Sweden, Portland, Maine, in Chicago, so slight outside Chicago. And we've got LA and New York yet to be confirmed, but I'm going to take it on tour and show it to as many people as possible before something else happens that I can't talk about right now. But yeah, I'm saying I'm distributing the film independently, but I've got people that are interested in the film that would like to have the film somewhere else. So I'd like to. This process is quite interesting because you do one thing and the other door opens, you know, and sometimes I'm not thinking of what's the next thing. I just want to be in the moment. I want to make sure the people in Glasgow, where the film is shot, see the movie, enjoy the movie, so we can build the buzz around that and then take it global. So yeah, I'm very excited. So from the 21st of July to the 5th of August, CCA Glasgow, and you'll be able to experience it in a 5.1 mix. So the whole surround system in the cinemas is going to sound really amazing.
That's brilliant. I really cannot wait to see it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for all of you when it comes out. Thank you, all of you, for taking the time to talk to me. I've really appreciated it.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks so much.
Having us. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. And we'll be back soon with someone completely different.